What if I told you that in 1936, a woman committed one of the most shocking crimes in Japanese history and then became a cultural icon? This is the disturbing story of Sada Abe, a case so infamous it sparked nationwide panic and inspired countless films, books, and academic studies. But be warned, what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about love, obsession, and murder. On May 18, 1936, police in Tokyo discovered the mutilated body of 42-year-old restaurant owner Kichizo Ishida in a hotel room. But this wasn't just another murder. The killer had strangled him during an intimate moment, then cut off his genitals and disappeared into the night. What happened next would grip an entire nation in what became known as Sada Abe panic. Let me take you back to where this twisted tale began. Sada Abe was born into a wealthy Tokyo family in 1905, the youngest of 8 children. Her mother adored her and gave her complete freedom. Perhaps too much freedom. At just 15 years old, Sada was sexually assaulted by an acquaintance. Though her family supported her, this trauma changed her forever. She became rebellious, uncontrollable, and began acting out in ways that shocked her traditional Japanese family. When Sada's behavior became too much to handle, her father made the decision that would seal her fate. He sold her to a geisha house in Yokohama. Now, becoming a geisha was supposed to be an honor, a mark of distinction for Japanese women. But the reality was far from glamorous. Sada quickly discovered that she wasn't talented enough to become a high-class entertainer. Instead, she found herself in the lowest ranks, essentially working as a prostitute. After contracting syphilis from a client, Sada made the transition to full-time prostitution. She worked in the famous red light district of Tobita in Osaka, but gained a reputation as a troublemaker. She stole money from clients and repeatedly tried to escape the controlled world of licensed prostitution. For years, she bounced between legal and illegal brothels, always seeking something more, something that would fill the emptiness inside her. By 1936, after losing both her parents and cycling through several lovers, Sada was desperate to escape her past. She took a job as an apprentice at a restaurant called Yoshidaya in Tokyo, hoping to finally start a respectable life. That's where she met the man who would become both her greatest love and her victim, Kichizo Ishida. Ishida was everything Sada had been looking for. At 42, he was handsome, successful, and incredibly charismatic. He owned the restaurant where she worked, though his wife actually ran the business while he spent his time seducing the female staff. Ishida was a notorious womanizer who was bored with his marriage, and Sada, with her wild spirit and tragic beauty, immediately caught his attention. Their affair began in mid-April 1936, and it was unlike anything either had experienced. Sada later said, "I had never met such a sexy man." Their sexual encounters were legendary, often lasting for days without interruption. On April 23rd, they checked into a tea house, essentially a love hotel, planning for just a quick encounter. They didn't leave for 4 days. But for Sada, this wasn't just physical attraction. For the first time in her life, she was truly in love. She wanted more than just to be Ishida's mistress. She wanted to be his wife. The thought of sharing him with his wife or with any other woman drove her into jealous rages. She began drinking heavily and became increasingly possessive. The turning point came when Sada attended a theatrical performance where Geisha threatened her lover with a knife. Inspired by what she had seen, Sada bought a large kitchen knife and confronted Ishida with it during their next encounter. Instead of being frightened, Ishida was aroused by the danger. He laughed it off and took her to another hotel in the red light district of Ogu for what would be their final marathon of passion. What happened in that hotel room over the next few days is based primarily on Sada's own testimony given during her 8-session police interrogation. According to her account, their lovemaking became increasingly extreme. She began using her obi, the sash from her kimono, to strangle Ishida during their intimate moments. He found the erotic asphyxiation pleasurable and encouraged her to continue, even asking her to do it while he slept. On the morning of May 18, 1936, while Ishida was sleeping, Sada wrapped her obi around his neck twice and strangled him to death. Whether this was intentional murder or a tragic accident during their dangerous game remains debatable. But Sada's actions afterwards left no doubt about her mental state. She later told police, "After killing Ishida, I felt totally at peace, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders." What she did next shocked even hardened investigators. Sada lay with Ishida's body for several hours, then took the kitchen knife she had bought days earlier and cut off his penis and testicles. She wrapped them in a magazine cover and put them in her purse. Using his blood, she wrote Sada Kichi together on his thigh and on a bedsheet. She even carved her name into his left arm. Finally, in a bizarre final act, she put on his underwear before leaving the hotel. When hotel staff eventually discovered the mutilated body, the news exploded across Japan like wildfire. The media dubbed the nationwide search Sada Abe Panic. False sightings were reported from across the country, and one fake sighting in Tokyo's Ginza district nearly caused a stampede. The Japanese press, dealing with serious political upheavals at the time, including a recent military coup attempt, welcomed this sensational sex scandal as a distraction for the public. For 3 days, Sada remained free, staying in nearby hotels and apparently planning to commit suicide. She even wrote farewell letters to her ex-lover and to Ishida. In a disturbing detail revealed during her interrogation, she admitted to necrophilic acts with Ishida's severed genitals during this time, saying she couldn't bear to be separated from this part of him. On May 20th, acting on a tip, police found Sada at a hotel in Shinagawa. When they knocked on her door, she immediately confessed. "You're looking for Sada Abe, right? Well, that's me. I am Sada Abe." When officers remained skeptical, she produced Ishida's severed genitals from her purse as proof of her identity. During her interrogation, she gave an explanation that would captivate the nation. When asked why she killed Ishida, her eyes were reportedly lit up with strange excitement when she answered, "I loved him so much I wanted him all to myself. But since we weren't husband and wife, as long as he lived, he could be embraced by other women. I knew if I killed him, no other woman could ever touch him again, so I killed him." When asked why she cut off his genitals, she replied, "Because I couldn't take his head or body with me. I wanted to take the part of him that brought back the most vivid memories." The Japanese public was absolutely fascinated. This wasn't just another jealousy killing. This was a woman who claimed she murdered for love. The case became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring everything from academic studies to popular entertainment. Even one of the judges at her trial later admitted to being sexually aroused by the explicit details of the case. Sada's trial began on November 25, 1936, with crowds gathering before dawn to catch a glimpse of her. The media coverage was unprecedented for Japan at the time, and transcripts of her testimony became national bestsellers. Young women who attended the trial were called Sada fans, and the press described the public fascination as Sada mania. Despite the prosecution asking for 10 years and Sada herself requesting the death penalty so she could join Ishida, she was sentenced to only 6 years in prison. The judge explained that Ishida had played a role in the events leading to his death and that Sada's mental state at the time warranted consideration. Sada served her time as a model prisoner, studying Buddhist philosophy and maintaining good behavior. Her sentence was commuted and she was released on November 10, 1940, after serving just over 4 years. But freedom brought new challenges. Despite living under assumed names, Sada's notoriety made it impossible to start over. She worked various jobs as a maid in restaurants and bars, but was repeatedly fired when employers discovered her true identity. She had brief relationships, but they always ended when the men learned who she really was. In the post-war period, attitudes towards Sada began to shift. What had once been seen as a cautionary tale about dangerous female sexuality was reinterpreted as a story of liberation and rebellion against oppressive social norms. She became a feminist icon to some, a symbol of a woman who refused to be controlled by society's expectations. Sada capitalized on her fame briefly, appearing in a traveling theatrical production and giving interviews to popular magazines. But by the 1950s, she had largely withdrawn from public life, working quietly in Tokyo bars and restaurants. The last confirmed photograph of her was taken in 1969, and she completely disappeared from public view in 1970. Some rumors suggest she entered a Buddhist convent, but her ultimate fate remains unknown.
The case of Sada Abe continues to fascinate people around the world. It's been the subject of numerous films, including the internationally acclaimed film In the Realm of the Senses in 1976, which shocked audiences with its explicit content and brutal ending. Academic studies, novels, and documentaries have all attempted to understand what drove this woman to commit this extreme act. Was Sada Abe a cold-blooded killer or a victim of her circumstances? Was her crime the ultimate act of love or the product of severe psychological trauma? Was she a feminist pioneer who refused to conform to society's expectations, or a dangerous individual whose actions should never be romanticized? Perhaps the answer lies somewhere in between. Sada Abe's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about love, obsession, sexuality, and violence. Her case remains